So as we sit here preparing the newest permanent kidding stalls on the other side of our barn, it got me thinking about all of those sweet, sweet babies that will be here mostly in March, a couple in April, and then like 1 or 2 stragglers in May, because they couldn't all just catch at the same time and let me have 1 or 2 weeks of insanity and then calm. So as I'm thinking about that, I look out into the field and I notice that I have 3 yearling does that just look really, really good. And really, they're ready. They are mature, they're looking good. They're starting to near the size of some of my 2-year-olds that were a little bit on the slower growing side that are bred for this year. And rather than wait until next fall to put them in my breeding program, I decided I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna breed them now. I'm going to breed them now so that they will kid, it's the end of January, February, March, April, May, June. So they should kid if they go into heat. I've got my girls in here, and hopefully if they start going into heat because they're around a buck and they're not usually around a buck here in the next couple of days, that they'll be kidding late June, early July, which means that they'll actually be able to show throughout the month of May as juniors. And then after they kid in June, they can go to late July and August shows as milkers, as yearling milkers. I know, Margie. Looks like someone might be getting kind of close to wanting to be in heat. Oh yeah, Tangi's gonna be the first one to go into heat. She's not quite there yet. We've actually already had a breeding. So that's what I was talking about, that they might go into heat because they haven't usually been around a buck, and now they're around a buck. These girls have been cycling pretty intensely for the last couple of months, and I was kind of hoping this. I feel like Margie just got off of a heat cycle and Tangi is like right on the precipice. I haven't really seen Dreamer cycle as much as she has in the past. But that doesn't mean she isn't cycling. It just means like she's gone through like her hormonal phase, and hopefully being in here with these two just playing footsie over here, that it pushes her into an estrus. And this is kind of what I was just talking about, that sometimes when you have young does that have not been in with bucks or in close proximity, when you put them in close proximity, it's like, bing, they figure out, kind of like an innuendo too, but they figure it out real quick, and their body responds to the pheromones that the buck has with his terrible cologne. But I think I'm gonna go and put Tangi down for being bred today, because she's definitely allowing him to make his advances. And really, this brings me to a question I have to answer all the time. How do I know when my doe is ready to breed for the first time? And we're not talking heat cycles. We're talking physically. When is it safe for your goat to be exposed to a buck? These girls are around 9 months old. And really, they probably could have gone in at 7 months. But I like to hold off. And the way that I make sure here is I actually have a spring caliper. Then I measure them from thurl to thurl. And I got this wonderful idea because of linear appraisals. When our appraiser came, he had one of these, and I thought it was just like the coolest thing. So basically, they turn it on. I need to make sure that's at 0. So I've got it at 0. So as I open this, it's going to tell you how wide it is between these two things. And from my experience, for Nigerian dwarfs, 4 inches is good. 4 inches is pretty good and wide, thurl to thurl, for a baby to pass through. 4 inches should be enough where you can get in to assist if you need to, or if you have like a wonderful farm girl like I have here. Josie's already said she wants to help me with kidding season, and I said, thank God, because your hands are smaller than mine in case we need to go in a reposition. And she was all about it. She was excited that she's finally old enough where I would trust her to do it. I probably would have trusted her last year, but it's also one of those things where it kind of needs to be okay with them, and they need to be up for the challenge. But this is just one way that we measure them thurl to thurl to make sure that their pelvis is wide enough for babies to pass through unassisted on the normal, unless you've got like a major, huge singleton buckling, which sometimes even the widest of does will have trouble with a really big singleton buckling. The next thing that we go by is their general weight. Are they heavy enough? Are they big enough? For Nigerian Dwarf, I know some people like 35. I really like to push mine to around 40 or 45 just to make sure that they are absolutely big enough and that they've probably got enough weight on them to calorically support gestation. So these girls were all right around, right between 40 and 47 in a range per the tape. But I did just buy a scale because sometimes the tape isn't all that great. So you guys can sit here with some things that I will be showing you that I have bought for kidding season, that I've actually got a scale, a small pet scale, because with Nigerian Dwarfs, I don't need something that big. I don't need anything all that big and crazy for these guys to stand on. I just need a little bit of a platform. So that helps me to take more specific weights on my first timers. I don't really care how much my does that are seasoned and that they've had plenty enough babies. I'm not really concerned about their weight. I'm only concerned that first year that we're setting them up for success, because if we set them up for success, then we in turn are successful because we've allowed them to mature enough to do this safely by themselves if they can, because that's how nature has intended it to be. Next, I just kind of look at their overall general appearance. If they look like they're nice and deep-bodied and they're long enough in the rump so that things can kind of line up the right way, which that's kind of hard to give you guys measurements on. Really, for me, I took my smallest doe that's a seasoned mother and just kind of did like a quick measurement, maybe by like hand, and did a measurement on them. Kind of just used my more mature does to help me with that. And last but not least, just general body condition. Do they look like they're healthy? These guys are all fat little piggies. Every last one of them. And they've all got really, really nice coats. They're all super happy. They almost never are that goat that kind of goes off on their own and sits kind of hunched like they don't feel good. These guys have always generally been healthy, but you're always going to have a couple that are just on different developmental paths where they just aren't maturing as quickly as one another because they're just like us. Humans don't all mature at the same rate. We all have our own specific rates that come in per genetics, per nutrition. There's lots of things that come into play when it comes to maturing, whether you're human or an animal. So I'm just make sure that they're nice and mature. The other girls that are out there are really close, but I think I'm going to revisit January kiddings. I know, guys, I said I never would do it. But I think in order to get like all of my girls caught up where they need to be, and when I say that, it's not implying that you have to breed your animals right away. This is implying that, sorry, these girls are not used to boys, so they're kind of like, and when I say that I'm trying to catch them up, it means that normally for most dairy goats, you like them to be kidding when they're like 1.5. Some people will push to make sure they are kidding as they are 1 year old. There are yearling milking classes for the shows. In some doelings, that's not a problem at all. They develop, they're healthy, they're wide enough, they're square enough, they're long enough that it is not going to hinder them or set them back health-wise for you to breed them. I have in the past held off some does, some that will be in this kidding cycle, to kid when they're turning 2. They were just a little bit behind developmentally when it came to like body capacity and things like that. I just did not feel safe kidding them out last year as yearlings. So they're kidding this year, but that puts them behind when it comes to a show circuit. And because dairy animals are meant to produce and produce and produce and produce, their body is built perfectly for it, that yearlings have a tendency to get fat, and that makes it harder for them to catch and to produce later on down the road. Are you already happy? Are you already happy being with the girls, man? Are you in heaven? You've got 3 all to yourself. These are just a few of the things that we take into consideration every year when we welcome the next year of breeding stock into our breeding program. It's going to be different for every farm. Just make sure that your animal is healthy and that they're going to be safe, and that you yourself, as the steward of your herd, feel comfortable with those practices. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know by dropping me a comment, leaving me a like, and subscribing. But until next time, y'all, thank you so much for being here. We hope that you're all staying safe out there and being kind to one another. God bless you. Bye.